Welcome back to Critical Moment. We're still with Kun Nicholas, the Universal Trainer. Kun Nicholas, we were talking about how successful you were. You were the successor of yourself. You were the trainer that have become well known in your own right. But you must have some kind of constraints that you must overcome. For example, you are very young looking. How do you overcome the age bias that is this little chap going to be able to teach me or coach me anything?
Well, thank you for that. I'd take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
But it's funny, I've been living with this now for quite some time, this constraint of looking perhaps young.
Yeah.
And I've been in Thailand for 14 years. And, you know, first time I came here to teach English as part of a gap year.
Right.
And I went into one of my clients and they said, sorry, I was 21 at the time. And they said, you know, who's this? I thought we were going to send a teacher, not a student. So I had to fight these battles pretty early on.
And how did you respond to that?
Well, they just accepted me after some time. I think, you know, it's funny because, you know, Thai people are very visual. Mm-hmm. And so
we judge the book by the cover.
Judge by the book by the cover. But when, you know, at some stage people actually start to read the book, I think then, you know, they will make a decision more based on what's in the pages. Mm-hmm. And I hope that over the years I've been, despite my age, I've learned from all the various experiences that I can share, and of course integrate this within the training and make it really worthwhile for the participants so that age isn't an issue for them.
Okay, so you pretty much have to show what you have in order to make them believe your talents. You've gone through so many of the training, and at the first 10 something minutes, people will have the same expression. What is this guy going to teach me? I would have that same expression if you were going to do some kind of coaching with me. So the 10 minutes at the beginning of your training would be your crucial moment. How do you choose to overcome this crucial moment?
I think that's a great question. I mentioned earlier about a technique I use called the hijack, right? Because I go in there into training and someone
Here's the gun.
It's a bit like that. In marketing we call it disruption marketing, if you like. But it's not quite disruption marketing because I kind of start with them and then I guide it round, the training round into the subject matter or the area they're going to be learning. So I use an activity. Now I've learned, I think it's really important, there's anyone who works in a different culture, one thing you can learn from that culture is from the advertising. Let me explain. If you look at adverts in Thailand, compared to adverts in Japanese, you'll see that adverts in Thailand are 90% image and 10% text.
That's right.
And in Japan, there'll be 90% text and 10% image. That's telling you something.
That's right.
So
they are very technical oriented. The Thai people are emotional oriented.
Right. So what I've learned from that is by getting an emotional activity in early on. And that really disrupts that train of thought, you know, that goes on. It's not just with me. With age might be one thing, but it may be, you know, someone may not like the look of me, or they might think, oh, I don't want to be here, or I don't want to be sitting next to this colleague who I really don't like. And there might be a number of things. Or it's early in the morning and I need another coffee, right?
That's right. Or I have a lot of work to do. I don't really want to be here.
Right.
But I have to fulfill my training hours, so I'll put up with this young chap.
Right. So there's a whole host of reactions that I could deal with. So
you hijack them.
So rather than deal with any of those one by one, I just make sure we have a fantastic training experience which starts off with something that, you know, lively, a video or an activity that is very close to their range of experience. So it's visual, it's hands-on, it's something that's energetic.
Right.
And usually take them by surprise. By the time they've done that, they're ready.
Yes. Now, would this technique be applicable for all the training endeavors in different countries?
That's another great question. whenever I go and train in another country, say Vietnam or Malaysia or any other country, the training setup here in Thailand, which is very visual, very video, very activity based, so it's energetic and activity, which is what really we want. We want people to learn something quickly, visual, and then we want them to be able to apply it in a way they can apply in the workplace, right? This is really well appreciated in other countries. Like I get comments like, we've never had any training like this before. This is just exactly how training should be. So, you know, the learning experience does not have to be a painful, tooth-pulling experience.
That's right.
In my philosophy, really, it's something that should be close to the participants. So if I really have done my homework, understand what their challenges, the backgrounds are, I can make sure that is close to them. If not, I look to local culture. So that could be what the advertising is telling me or what's on the TV, because these guys have spent millions of dollars researching the very same question and use that.
Right, obviously you train a lot in Thailand. What language do you use to train the Thai people?
Well, I've got to make a confession here. Unfortunately, my Thai is not very good. I can't read or write Thai.
Okay.
So it leaves me...
So your participants will have to be able to speak English somewhat.
Yes, they do. I can speak some Thai, but I think the way I set the training up, and it links back to your last point as well, my philosophy is that the training should do the work. So if the training is really well set up, almost it doesn't need a facilitator. And that for me is very important, because if it flows, if it's well structured, if the activities, you know, keep the energy going at the right pace, if they set the right level of challenge, etc., use the right combination of images, etc., then the training does the work, and it's very, very easy to follow it. And you know, you know, when the keywords are just translated into Thai, and the video is in Thai with Thai subtitles. And another thing I think is a strength. You know, we're talking about weaknesses, but I like to talk about a strength, is that I can get the concepts down to the most essential, easy to use concepts, right? So if you're training in Thailand, Malaysia, you know, anywhere in the Arab Peninsula, it's the same. Humans are universal.
So the concept or the core of what you train is pretty much applicable to everywhere that you go.
Right, because what I try to do is normally in training you get a load of complexity. Okay, so it's really, really difficult. If it's difficult, that for me, something's already wrong. So there should be a way of making this really easy for someone to grasp. And this is important because people working across cultures, for people who work across cultures, it takes so long to be able to communicate something to them.
Yes.
So what they need to do is to work backwards and just get a simple concept. So how can you get that across as quickly and easily as possible without losing the fullness, the completeness of it? So that's something I tend to do. So for example, in marketing, I say that 3 things you need for customer engagement: say, stay, and spend.
Say, stay, and spend.
And anyone who has a business anywhere in the world, those are the only 3 behaviors a customer to grow your business.
The
Nothing
3 magic S's: say, stay, and spend.
Okay, and you won't get that in Harvard Business School, but you do get it with Talent Technologies.
Unbelievable. And you will have the participants know how to say, know how to make the customer stay, and know how to entice them to spend.
That's right. And so instead of having, you know, you can see if you go to Starbucks, and most people will see this, Starbucks will have a manual of this is how to deal with customer, etc., etc. Isn't it a lot easier for your frontliners in Asia, who probably haven't gone through a good education experience, to keep it very simple, and you just explain it in those 3 things? You just need your customers to do these 3 things.
Yes.
Okay, and then you break it down into the emotions you're trying to evoke, etc. So that's just an example.
Now, what topic of the training course are we talking about? This say, stay, and spend.
Okay, this is in a training program called Customer Experience Maximization.
Oh, so you train the employees or the participant to maximize the customer experience via the 3 S's.
Correct, and the managers too can R.
Okay, so do you have the frontline and the managers train with you at the same time in the same room?
Yes, I like that to happen.
Is that right?
Yes, and I think, you know, again, people who are familiar with the culture here would probably say, hang on, you can't do that in Thailand. Why not?
Because we have subordination and higher up going
hierarchy,
on.
right?
Yes.
You've got hierarchy. So what I try to use, I use a positive from the culture, which is a group orientation. So you'll see that managers and employees will very happily go out together, for example, for drinks after work, and then it will be very easy to communicate.
Yes.
But sometimes in work, if there's a meeting, that energy isn't there. So what I try to do is I create, and I hope do this, is to create the energy from the after work drinks and through an activity, and then get them to work using that energy on these areas.
Sounds fun. Sounds like you bring in happy hour into your training course. Does that require that you have some kind of wine or alcohol?
No alcohol.
But it works, right? Bring in the energies as what you would have gained outside into the training room, and bridge the gap between the manager and their subordinates.
Right. And yes, it does work. And one of the things I'm very proud about is the feedback that we get, and we get regularly on just the basic Net Promoter Score is over 9 out of 10. It's very difficult to get that.
What exactly is a Net Promoter Score?
Net Promoter Score, it again relates to customer side. It's how likely is it that you would recommend your company to a friend or colleague?
That is the exact question about the recommendation.
Magic question, we call
it.
Right.
And Kunik, what do you often get with the Net Promoter Score?
The training that I offer usually gets over 9 out of 10 on the basic Net Promoter Score. Okay, so that's very difficult to get. Basically.
So that means they are willing to recommend their friends or their peers to join in your training classes.
That's correct. That's what it means. If you get 8, then people are going to be loyal, but they're not necessarily going to recommend. But 9 and above, which is very difficult to get in Thailand, fun enough, is very difficult to get, and it does indicate that they will be willing to say as well as to stay, and hopefully to spend as well.
What are you planning to do with that? Who are your target audience, and what sort of training would they require you to give?
Okay, I think that's another really interesting question, because the business landscape is moving really quickly, and I'm seeing a trend towards people wanting more peer learning. Okay, so that means when a friend trains another friend. So this is an area I'm working on at the moment. But also I'd like to really develop some of the training I've got into a more global training offering that's happening perhaps with more of a brand, and that's my next challenge.
Right. At this moment, let us take a break. We'll be back in a minute.